Santa Clarita's hometown station, KHTS, is the Hometown Morning Show with Tori and Kyle. Make sure you go to hometownstation.com for all the latest and greatest Santa Clarita has to offer. Speaking of the greatest,
Woo!
Santa Clarita has to offer, he is Richard Sherman from Alta Realty Group, and he joins us now. Richard, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me in.
Come on, we applauded for you.
Oh, yay, thank you.
We did the slow golf clap for you.
I don't play golf, but I'll take the clap.
That's something.
Actually,
Richard.
I like that intro so much that I actually want to get it. Just whenever I walk into a room, I don't really have handlers, but I'm going to get some. And whenever I walk into a room, they're going to play that.
Yeah, you should.
That's my thing. Now that restaurants and stuff are reopening, I'm going to walk in and they're going to play that.
We're totally good with that.
Thank you.
How you doing, man?
Well, I'm doing very well.
Yeah,
I'm doing very well.
What's the latest? It's always so good. Listen, it's always so good. I'm gonna
Always
be
fun
frank.
to talk to me.
I'm gonna be frank. It's always great to see you because you have such a great personality and it's so fun to see you. But then you bring information to us that's like, oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
So,
Unfortunately, I try to be more interesting in this, but it's more of the same. As things are getting back online now, as the pandemic seems to be cycling down, which is wonderful news, we're seeing the number of foreclosures spike. The numbers between March and April have almost doubled.
Oh.
Now, it's a terrifying thing to say, but you got to keep in mind how low they were in March. Because you've had a large segment, not all, but a large segment of the foreclosures were paused for the last really 13 months. And now they're starting to come online. And what you're going to start to see in June, July, and especially in August is when all the forbearances end, and then it's going to get really ugly. But what we're seeing more than anything else, what I really would like to talk about to try to, when the listeners please react to this, if you have a second mortgage, if you have ever had a second mortgage, and you are not 100% sure that it is gone, even if you're 99% sure that it is gone, please check. Because if you had, like, let's say in 2008, you did a loan modification and you had a second and you thought that was taken care of, it wasn't. They don't roll them into one loan. That never happens, does not ever happen. If you filed a bankruptcy, a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, check with your attorney because in Chapter 7s, they do not typically wipe out second mortgages.
Wait, what?
They
What?
don't. They don't take out second. You file a bankruptcy. Chapter 7 is the type where you're in and out pretty quickly. Chapter 13 is the longer type. In a Chapter 13, you can get rid of it if the first over-encumbers the property. In other words, you owe more on the first than it's worth. Again, check with a bankruptcy attorney. That's I know a lot about this, but not my field of expertise. But with a Chapter 7, it does not wipe out the junior lien. It takes it away from you, but it leaves it on the house. And so what happens is, that's what creates what we call zombie seconds. Sometimes called ghost seconds. I like zombie better, though. Zombie seconds, which is a debt you thought was dead. You've been paying on your first, paying it down, so you think you're in pretty good shape. Maybe through the pandemic it went up a little bit, whatever, you're working on it. And then you go to sell the house, refinance, or worse yet, you just get a letter in the mail that says, hi, we now own your second. You haven't paid it in 12 years. That $50,000 second is now $150,000. Please pay us in the next 90 days or we're taking your house.
Oh.
And we're getting more. I saw the first one of these about 5 or 6 years ago, and I thought that can't be right, and it is. And I've been through this with legislators and with attorneys, with everybody, and yeah, they have the right to do this. There's no requirement, really, realistic requirement, that with a mortgage debt that there's any attempt to collect. They can come at you whenever they want. So you may think it's gone. I have a client who likes to say, we didn't have a child when that happened, and now we have one in high school, and now this is here. I mean, it was 15 years ago.
Right.
And there was no attempt to collect over 15 years, and now here it is. And it's a great big debt because it was only about 5 or 6% interest, but unpaid for 15 years. So their little $30,000, $40,000 debt is now burdening at, $210, $220, something like that?
Is this common?
Very, unfortunately. And what should happen, let me explain a little bit what it is. When zombie seconds happen, it's because it's a debt left unpaid that somebody usually comes in and buys, and then somebody else buys it, and somebody else buys it. Now, when a bank charges off a debt, what they are doing is they're telling both the state and federal government that this is uncollectible and of no value. Think about that for a second. Uncollectible, of no value. Then they will turn around and sell that debt in the secondary markets to some other company, some other bank, could be an individual, for a value. So on the one hand, you say it has no value. On the other hand, you then sell it for a value. Then that guy who probably paid 50, 60 cents on the dollar, maybe less for it, probably bought a bunch of them at the same time, I just bought one, can then come back and say, well, even though I only paid 50 cents on the dollar for this debt, I want all of the money that is owed on this debt, and I want all of the past due stuff, and you owe me all of it. And if I don't get all of it, I have the right to take your house.
Whoa.
That's ridiculous. And what used to prevent that up until about 5, 6 years ago is when a junior lien holder comes to take a house. Because remember, if you're talking about a $50,000 debt, $25,000 and suddenly you have control of a $500,000 or more house in the Santa Clarita Valley, certainly. Average price is $700,000 now. So what'll happen is the second will buy it very, very cheaply, go to get all of it. And because it's supposed to be a charged off debt, you thought it was dead. You got a letter in the mail that says your debt has been charged off. No further payments are necessary. I would think it was a done deal, but most people do. But it's not. It just means they charged it off for this and then they sold it to somebody else typically. And then that person then comes back and says, give it all to us. And if you've built up equity over time, you've got a great big problem now. These are cancers living inside your mortgage that must be taken care of because they will come up and they will become a problem at the absolute worst time. So if you have filed a bankruptcy, if you have had a loan modification, if for any reason you had a second, third, fourth, anything other than a first, and you think it was paid off, for goodness sake, check. Call me. I'll do it for you. It's free. It takes no time at all. But the biggest problem is that what used to happen is when a junior lien holder would foreclose like this. I don't want to be too boring about this, but the first would say, okay, we're owed $400,000 on this house. You foreclosed on that $50,000 debt. Give us our $400,000. That's what it used to happen because banks all have what's called a due on sale or acceleration clause in their mortgage. It says if the title changes, you got to pay us. Banks stopped collecting on those. Banks' new attitude suddenly became, well, as long as the junior lien holder pays us the mortgage, we don't care. And if it slides into foreclosure and the junior lien holder who now has title wants to pull it out of foreclosure, we don't care about that either. We will simply sit here continuing to collect our money from that guy. Now here's the fun part. The family that was foreclosed on still has that first debt in their name. So they can't go get another mortgage while that one sits there because they've got that debt in their name. They can't get credit cards. They can't sort themselves out because that debt is still there. I've got a family in Canyon Country this has been going on with now with Trojan Financial. We've talked about them before. This has been going on now for the better part of 5 years. This should not have been a foreclosure to begin with. This little horrible company forecloses. Guys are dirty as you can possibly believe. They're changing around company names and stuff. They've got a tenant in the property now who's called me because she heard me on the air talking about him. They're treating her poorly, which is one thing after another with these guys. Very slippery characters. You can't get them on the phone. You can't get them to do their jobs. And yet they're torturing these other people because why should they make good on a $500,000 debt when they can simply spend $2,000 or $3,000 a month instead? And it goes into foreclosure, and then they pull it out of foreclosure. That goes on my client's credit. And this happens over and over and over again. And there is the only way this gets fixed is with legislation. This is very simple. The state of California simply says, if you foreclose on a property, you must make good on the senior liens. That's it. But there's no willingness to do that. Local politicians and politicians all over the state, whenever I have an opportunity to talk to them about this, and the station's been kind enough to provide me with some of those opportunities over the years, so thank you. They all agree over that, yep, that sounds simple, that sounds great, we should do that. Well, great, we should do that then. And then absolutely nothing happens. And that happens over and over and over again. I mean, it's disheartening because we've been at this now for 5 years. This is a clear flaw in the system, and people are being hurt by this. Families are losing their homes because of this. And yet I have sat in one office after another, various politicians all over the state of California, and they all, both parties, they will all it's very nice that they'll take the meeting, and usually they'll talk to me, their staffs will, and that's very nice of them. And they think that's great, and I put in supporting documentation and all the stuff they could need, and then I never hear another word. Because when somebody goes into foreclosure like this, they don't tell their friends and neighbors. And unless it becomes a political issue, this will not be fixed. Because there will never come a time at which a bank decides to voluntarily just do the right thing. The idea that banks are going to act more responsibly is like saying if we give them enough money, they'll simply get tired of counting it. It doesn't work that way. I wish it did, but it doesn't. So for goodness sake, if you've ever had a junior lien on your house that you think is paid off, check. Please check, because these things only get worse over time. They do not get better, and they do not go away. There is no expiration date. If I were to loan you money, depending on the type of loan it was, in either 7 or 12 years, if I didn't make any attempt to collect, it goes away. I lose my right to collect. With a bank, doesn't exist because they take the end of the mortgage and then attach any time frame to that. So if you have a 15 or 30-year mortgage, it makes the time frames obscene. And there's
But you can check for us.
Absolutely, I can.
So let's say
I like checking for you. It's fun.
Let's say listener driving around the car on the way to work and said, "Uh-oh.
Hey, I had a second mortgage a couple years ago. I thought it was paid off. Yeah.
How do they get to you?
Call me 661-714-1400. That's my personal cell phone. I know everybody makes fun. I give it out over the air. 661-714-1400. And yeah, please call. I take calls at all hours of the day and night. If I don't answer, just text.
Richard Sherman, Alta Realty. You're pretty much Superman.
Well, I'm working on it.
Didn't bring the cape today.
No, I did bring a nice jacket though.
You did. You look lovely.
I always dress up for you.
And see, this is why we have fun with you, because with all of the things that you need to do and help people, you still try to be a little bit lighthearted and get through.
Topic, yeah.
It is difficult, but you do it, and you do it with bells on. So
And we do it for free.
And you do it for free. So again, phone number
661-714-1400. We do it again, 661-714-1400. And you can also find me here through the station anytime.
You sure can.
I'm easy to find.
You are easy to find. Richard Sherman, thank you so much.
You.
You're only the best.
Thank you for having me.